Hello, my name's Nick. I used to be fat. I want to get jacked. This is my channel where I'm talking about my anecdotal experiences with dieting, fitness, weight loss, health, all that good stuff. And today, I am going to be talking a little bit about the nutrition again, but in this video, I'm talking about a change that I had made temporarily in my weight loss journey uh, that ended up benefiting me in ways that I wasn't exactly expecting. uh, it it was a change I had made for my health that ultimately helped me with my weight loss and uh, helped me in my health in ways that were unintended. So uh, here we go with I'm gonna call it my gluten-free side quest. I lived a year eating gluten free, and I'll sort of get into the nitty gritty of all that. But I just want to preface by saying I'm not a doctor, or a dietitian, or nutritionist. This is all my opinion, and I was following the advice of a medical professional whenever I started this journey, as I'll get into. So always consult your doctor whenever you're thinking about a diet plan, especially one that can be sort of extreme, where you're cutting out a lot of foods uh, that have a certain ingredient or something like that uh, for your health. I'll just start with why did I go gluten free? So in 2022, when I had started my weight loss journey already. At that point, I was still in my chronic pain, which if you haven't seen my first video, watch that and you'll see the whole story with that. But I was still in the midst of my chronic pain, still having trouble walking. But I had also decided that I was going to have a primary care physician for the first time, which I hadn't had one since I was a child. I just always went to urgent care for any issues that I had. I had never had blood work done in my adulthood. So I was like, well, let me be an adult now and actually get a physician who is gonna give me regular checkups and see where I'm at. So I did my initial round of blood work, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember what the metric was that the doctor looked at in my blood work, except that it had something to do with my thyroid. So I I was in there one day and she said, "Oh, by the way, like this thyroid marker is it's a little bit elevated, so I think if you ate more gluten-free foods that would probably help with that. I don't know if it's like inflammation or something like that." uh, but I just was like, okay. So immediately I started eating gluten-free. At that point, my mom had already been diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroidism, and she was supposed to be eating gluten-free anyways, like severely was supposed to be eating gluten-free, and she was not very consistent with it. But uh, at least for me, I was like, okay, well, and then that will help her out too, because I think because I do care about my mom and I want her to be healthy. So I thought that that was also a plus, that it was something that I could do with her, that I could explore with her. Um, so for a year, I did not eat gluten, with the exception of, I believe, 3 or 4 instances where I either forgot to ask for like corn tortillas for a fajita or something, uh, or I just like really wanted a chicken sandwich or something like that. But uh, it was almost always like just gluten free swaps for everything. Your red lentil pastas, your gluten free breads, basically anything you could think of. My mom makes gumbo, like Zataran's gumbo from a box, but they make gluten free versions too, because gumbo inherently has gluten in it. And so we were doing that kind of stuff as well, just like finding gluten free swaps for things that we like to eat. And what ended up happening was I really, well, first of all, I started actually paying for my own food, because I realized that I needed to start taking care of myself, even though I lived with my parents at the time. I needed to start taking care of myself a little bit, and so I figured if it was something that only I was going to eat, I should pay for it. So I started buying the gluten free breads and all that stuff myself, and started reading the labels and like figuring out ingredients. Like I really would start reading everything. I learned a lot about uh, who should and should not be going gluten free. One of the things I learned while I was doing this was that people really think that like going gluten free is a health diet, and it fully is if you are allergic or sensitive to it. But people think that gluten free is inherently healthier. Not the case at all. Um, your gluten free products have basically the same amount of calories, same amount of carbohydrates, empty carbohydrates, as your glutinous counterparts. So really, it's not a health thing to do it unless your doctor tells you that you need to do it for your health. Um, but it's not like, oh, your gluten free breads are like gonna be so much healthier for you. It's still fucking bread. It's still fucking bread. But you're gonna you're just gonna find that the sticking point with it is that gluten free foods are way more expensive. And the thing I learned was that I was buying all these like gluten free breads and like the gluten free pastas and all that stuff. No, it's not like I was eating it all the time, or maybe I was. Maybe I just don't remember correctly. But I do remember being like, I would rather just not eat it because it's like I'm not gonna. I had already made a decision. Like I'm gonna be gluten free. Like that's just what it is. I'm not going to stray from that. And so if the options are then eat the gluten free, eat the gluten stuff, the glutinous bread, your glutinous pastas, whatever, which I'm not going to do. Buy the expensive stuff that's gluten free, which I don't really want to do, or just completely omit those food groups. That's what I'm going to do. Uh, or not completely omit them, but like really cut back on them. I was not, I did not want to go broke to eat some toast. uh, and what ended up happening was my carbohydrate intake decreased a lot. And I think that was probably also a big contributing factor to my weight loss before I hit my 210 plateau. I just was I think I spent like a few months eating like just like swapping the gluten-free stuff before I started cutting back on it. So I do think that like it helped me reduce my calories because I was just like trying to figure out other things that I could eat that was not gonna break the bank, that was not gonna make me go broke, just so I could have the carby goodness. Being gluten free, it's funny how like being gluten free sort of became an identifying factor of me, uh, considering it wasn't even like to me it wasn't even like serious, right? It was just like, oh, this health marker could improve if you ate gluten free, and that's all it was. Like I didn't see it as like a drastic change, especially even whenever I stopped eating eating those carbs as much. I was just like I was just I was just chilling. But like people looked at me and were like, oh my god, well you eat gluten free, you eat healthy. Again, gluten free is not inherently healthy. In fact, it is just a descriptor. It is not a qualitative statement. It is not a qualitative adjective. It is just oh, this has wheat in it, basically. Um, so I eat gluten free for a year, and the thing that it taught me was it helped to teach me to not expect meals to have to include those kinds of carbohydrates, honestly. Uh, and I think that was the biggest that was a big shift that was sort of happening behind the scenes just through the circumstances of the diet that I was on. I was not seeking to cut out my carbs. I was just seeking to not have to spend so much money just to eat. Uh, and so like my protein, my veggie intake uh, really increased a lot because I just like I still needed to eat. I was still hungry, still still had the stomach of a 350-pound man, even though I was smaller. Am smaller still, but like I still have a huge appetite. I just have to figure out how to curb that without the carbs, without having to go broke buying all that stuff. The year rolls around, the my annual checkup, I should say. I go in, I get my blood work done, and at that point, I'm just like curious. I'm like, remember, I only strayed, I only strayed like 3 or 4 times throughout that entire year, uh, and I get to the doctor's office, and she's like giving my blood work or whatever, and she mentions the thyroid marker again, and I was like, okay, well, and it's like still a little elevated, right? And I'm just like, okay, well, can you check from my chart from last year and see if it's improved? Because she mentioned the gluten free thing again, and I said, okay, well, I have been eating gluten free for this entire year, and that's not me like misremembering or misrepresenting my food intake. At this point, I had already been so good at being holding myself accountable for what I was eating, which is the big part of a diet. So I was holding myself accountable. I knew like at that point I knew exactly. I didn't know the dates, but I knew exactly what foods I had eaten that were not gluten free over the course of that year, and I told them to her, and told her like about how many months prior that was. Like I knew it, and she looked at my chart from the previous year, and I think the marker improved by either zero point 0.1 or zero point 0.2. And she looked at me and she says, "Yeah, I don't think you have to worry about the gluten." And so I said, "Boots. We're eating I don't know what we're eating a loaf of bread. I don't fucking know." But I left out of there and I wasn't gluten free anymore. Again, it helped me to structure my meals differently. I was no longer in the habit of having to have bread with every meal. Like when we would go to a restaurant and they'd have the free bread, we would say, "Oh, can we not have the bread?" Like, which is crazy to think, right? That you're gonna not only pass up free food but pass up free bread. Bread is great, but yeah, I it helps to dissuade me from giving into an unhealthy habit, to just absent-mindedly perform that habit. I didn't I didn't see any significant health improvements from cutting out gluten specifically, but I did see behavior change and habit change off of cutting out the kind of carbs that normally contain gluten. So, anyways, that was my little gluten free side quest. My year of avoiding gluten. Uh, it did, however, one of the other unexpected consequences of it is that I love corn tortillas. If you give me the option between a corn tortilla and a flour tortilla for a taco, I'm taking the corn tortilla. And the thing is, a lot of people who are not Hispanic, or especially Mexican, uh, do not understand that kind of a thing because they see a corn tortilla and they taste it raw, and it's just like, oh, this isn't good. It's like, yeah, you're supposed to heat it up, idiot. Anyways, gluten is not an enemy. Gluten is an enemy for people who have celiac or who have gluten intolerance, they call it. Um, and I know that gluten can have an effect on thyroids, which is why my mom, with her Hashimoto's, is supposed to not eat gluten. But like eating gluten free is not going to be a healthy lifestyle. That is not a healthy lifestyle. Eating healthier foods is a healthy lifestyle. And if you just swap your regular food for your gluten free foods, then that's not improving your health. That is just swapping one kind of carbohydrate for another kind of carbohydrate. And generally that other kind of carbohydrate is just as detrimental or beneficial to your health as its regular counterpart, as its classical counterpart. So thank you for watching. Again, my name is Nick, not a doctor, scientist, nutritionist, dietitian, anything like that. Just my anecdotal evidence. And I am going to be on my next video talking about my goals for this year. So keep a lookout for that. And also, once I set those goals, I'm hoping to be able to make it like a consistent sort of update style as far as where I'm going with those goals. But until then, like, comment, subscribe, share. And thank you so much for watching till the end. Bye.